Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Follow Your Passion podcast. Please welcome my guest, Kristine Ochu. Kristine is an international best-selling author of Campfire Confessions, 2023 Global Women Entrepreneur of the Year, a 2023 Global Women Mentor of the Year, and founder of the Be Unstoppable Create Your Amazing Life workshops. She's a former world log rolling champion, screenwriter, documentary film producer, and international HR executive who has taught thousands of people a winning mindset. Kristine has over 35 years of research in the area of transformational sports and positive psychology, neuroscience, quantum physics, energy medicine, tapping, meditation, and creative visualization, and more. So we got a lot to talk about, and I'm very happy she's here. Welcome, Kristine. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm feeling unstoppable today.
Perfect.
Ready to go.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
talk to me about this World Log Rolling Championship. How did you come up with that?
Ooh. Well, I grew up in a small town outside of Hayward, Wisconsin, a town of like 1,600 people. So we lived on the outskirts. And this is though where the World Lumberjack Championships are held every year. So I think we're close to 60 years now. And about 8 years old, I got on a log and got log rolling fever. I mean, I loved it. I fell in love with it, hung out every summer at the log rolling docks with my friends, and started competing when I was probably 10, and then competed up into my 20s. And I still volunteer coach, and actually I practiced last night and also helped teach a little 4-year-old how to log roll for the first time. So that was really a blast.
Nice. So for people who don't know it, you both stand on a log and you try rolling the other person from into the water, right?
Yes, what it is, you have a 12-foot long log, usually white pine or cedar, and it varies in diameter as far as the width, how much kind of width you have to stand on. And so, of course, the smaller the width, the faster the log is. So you kind of start on a number 1 log, which is 15 inches in diameter, and it goes down to the number 4, which is 12 inches in diameter. And that number 4 is fast. They call it dynamite.
Yeah.
So there's 2 people on a log. There's a line that's painted on the middle of the log, and it's 3 out of 5 falls. So basically, you're trying to get your opponent to fall in the water before you do. The first person to stay in the log 3 times when the other person falls in is the winner. So it requires a lot of balance, focus, and faith.
Yeah, I was wondering on that, right? What's the secret ingredient? Is it balance? Is it speed? Is it strength as well? Or is it all of the above? Or
it truly is all of the above. It's like, you can't make a cake without enough ingredients, right? Just flour, putting flour in the oven, it's not going to make it work.
Yeah.
A very simple example. But with the log rolling, you definitely need to focus. The minute you take your eyes off the log, you lose your balance. It's just whatever it is, I'm not quite sure what the formula would be for that, but it's just keeping your eyes on the other person's feet. And then really you do need to have fast feet, so you can't get away with having, short, fast steps is the key. But you can't let those moments of self-doubt in. You've got to really be confident. And that was a big lesson I learned at a young age, is that even when you don't feel it, maybe you fake it till you make it, as they say sometimes. But it's much better when you can really develop that true inner confidence, and that's what I'd really love to help people to do.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great step towards entrepreneurship, because I guess that all those skills you developed by becoming the world champion as well, you're still using in your business, right?
I definitely am. And, I have to say, I was also inspired by lumberjacks that surrounded me. I mean, some of my friends climbed 100-foot poles, and chopped logs and sawed logs and all that kind of stuff. But you're right. It's really developing that inner confidence for entrepreneurs is critical. I mean, I think I don't know, when I think about it, it's probably one of the number 1 ingredients to success.
Yeah, nice. And so I already mentioned in the introduction, you're already doing research for 35 years in this field. What's the most what's something that was like this aha moment for yourself when you learned about it?
Gosh, that is a great question, Ern. I've had, probably like yourself, many aha moments, not just one. And what I started to do is to gather up these aha moments, and I study with some great leaders, out there, people you'll still, hear about and read about. But as I study, like, let's say energy medicine with Donna Eden, it's like so many aha moments. And I really started to build this toolkit that whenever I was maybe in a funk or feeling low, or maybe going through a family tragedy or something like that, or life transition, I would pull out this piece of paper where I started listing all these different tools that I would use that I had gathered up from all these fields. And some days some tool works better than another tool. Someday you need to get out of your head and you need to get in your body more, right? So you might
Yeah,
need more movement. Maybe you need to squeeze all your muscles really tight, right? Just one of those movements, and then just let them all relax, and suddenly you have more space in your body. Sometimes your body might feel really anxious and you might need to say, what am I thinking about? Right. So then you can kind of go to some of these tools that address, what are your thoughts? Are you using I am statements? I mean, how are you going to shift your thoughts? And then sometimes that's the emotion part, right? Learning that, okay, what am I feeling? And is that feeling serving me? And if not, how can I shift it? And what tool can I use for that? So I'd say so many aha moments. I can't even list them all. Maybe
yeah,
my top one is really the stop. Actually, behavior cognitive theory, which is part of that. That your thoughts create your emotions create your behavior, and it becomes that cycle, right? And
yeah.
using this tool called stop, stop, you can stop that cycle and pause, examine, and decide, where do I want to go from here?
Nice, nice. And um, well, talking about neuroscience, and there's so much to talk about it, right? Um,
Oh yeah.
did you always had the ambition to become an entrepreneur?
You know, I always wanted to be a writer when I was a little girl. I had these dreams of going to New York City, living in this really cool, expensive loft, and I'd have this glamorous life as a writer.
Mhm.
Instead, I went to college and I studied. I started with accounting, which was really kind of hilarious for maybe a year, and then I switched to psychology, which made a lot more sense. But I think back then it was practical, get a job, that type of thing. Graduated the BA in psych and went on to the master's in HR. And so I always was very driven. I didn't mind working. Working was fun and, enjoyable, and learning and growing was all kind of part of the journey. So I wanted to be a writer, and I guess being a writer, and when I think about it, aha moment is being an entrepreneur, right? You're creating a product, your book, and then you have to
Yeah,
find ways to sell it. You have to find your customers, you have to find your target audience, and then you have to continue to market it and sell it and stick with it and not give up. So just, yeah, but I went on to create my own businesses after I went on to become an international HR executive. And then after that was really when I stepped into the world of being an entrepreneur, when I decided to leave and really pursue my creative interests.
nice. So would you say that creating your best-selling book, Campfire Confessions, was completing the circle, so to speak?
That is such a good question. I've got it here. They go Campfire Confessions. Um, I don't know if that's circle. I mean, in some ways it could be, but I think as any author, when you write a book that you love, and which I really love this book, because I believe the messages in them are so important right now to society. It's about self-love. It's about forgiveness. It's about letting go of past mistakes. But wrapped up in this fun action adventure story with three, best friends that go on this kind of wild, life-changing adventure together. basically to escape some of the mistakes that they just created for themselves, and they really messed up. So when you have messages like that, it's really hard, even though you've written the book, it's been out there for a year now. It's continuing to sell. But you get to that point, okay, how much more energy am I going to put into continuing to sell and promote versus starting the next book or the next project, which is really where I'm at now. So
Yeah.
in some ways, some authors are able to say, okay, I'm done, boom. For me, I'm trying to still create space to promote it while creating the next book and the next business, continuing on with my business.
And how was it for you to create your first book?
Wow. The first book is actually this very silly children's book called No Pooping on the Dock. All know Loony, Wacky, Crazy, and Naughty Ducks. And I actually wrote that for my two little granddaughters that were really struggling and having a meltdown. And that was just kind of like going to Kinko's and copying and really not even knowing what I was stepping into. And I wonder how many entrepreneurs are like that they start out thinking this is going to be kind of easy and fun and not such a big deal. And then suddenly, wow, their eyes get open and you see how much work there really is. I think that first book was challenging. The Campfire Confessions was more of a professional journey. And yeah, I'm not sure if I quite answered your question there, but.
Well, I remember that I always said that I wanted to get my driver license for a motorbike, and I already had this in my mind that when I would get my driving license, I would buy a chopper. Yet I never driven a motorcycle before that, right? So at a certain moment, I decided for myself to take a package of just a trial for motor lessons, right? It was like I think it was 2 hours package, because I said to myself, I want to experience whether or not I like it, right? Because
Right.
if I don't like driving a motorcycle, there's no need anymore to keep this desire in my mind, right?
Right.
So I took these 2 hours of driving license and I loved it. So I knew, okay, I'm on the right path and someday I will get it, right? And
Yep.
of course I achieved it. And but I can imagine that when you were young and you said, I want to become a writer, and you had this in your mind, that at a certain moment you have to start doing it, right? And then
Right.
experience whether or not you love doing it, or that it wasn't like you have imagined.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
There's
Yeah.
some young girls, they want to become like an air hostess, right? Because they see traveling all over the world. But when they become it, it's not like they expected it, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
so how was that for you with your writing?
Um, that's a great question. With the writing, I would have to say, there's a lot to learn, especially with Campfire Confessions. And since I worked with a publishing company, I didn't have to get into the nuts and bolts, such as finding my own graphic designer for the book cover, as far as formatting the book and getting it into Ingram Sparks and some of the distribution channels, which a lot of independent authors that are out there have to do, or find resources to help them do that. So that was helpful, because it's a tremendous amount of work. It really is, to get it out there and to keep it out there. And I think that's where a lot of authors they stop, and sometimes entrepreneurs as well, is they just didn't realize how much work that it takes. And so I would say, you're always building your knowledge base, right? Like you said, with your taking a test, for the chopper test, and deciding that you were good at it and you still wanted to do it and you had the desire.
Yeah.
I would say that I'm really proud of the book, so that feeds it. And then also seeing how I've been in book club discussions around the world, and we've had some amazing conversations. So I see that some of the themes and discussions that have happened have been powerful for women to discuss, and men.
Yeah.
So there is that reward system too that entrepreneurs get, yeah. So, I think my reward is just having a heck of a lot more knowledge about the whole publishing world and, and everything that goes along with it than I did a few years
Right.
ago.
And the fact that you mentioned that you're already thinking or actually working on a second book shows that you still love
Uh,
the process.
yes, yes, yes. I do love the creative process. I love seeing my writing get better, and I'm sure with entrepreneurs out there, sometimes it's that trial and error. And I think there is a beauty in saying you can redecide every day, you know. Like let's say you didn't like it and everything wasn't going right. It's like you don't have to finish a book that you don't like. I mean, if you really can't stand a book, I mean, even watching a movie, I mean, especially at home now, you didn't pay that big theater ticket to get into a movie where you might have stayed to the very end, even if you didn't
Yeah.
like it, right? We might want to just say, oh, I'll watch something else on Netflix or whatever, your channel of choice is. But yes, absolutely. Still love it.
Nice. So, about your empowerment program, Kristine, the Unstoppable You, creating or designing a positive mindset, a winning mindset. How did that came along? Is it something that you experienced yourself, that you went through yourself, and now you're able to share it with others, or how did that come along?
I think it really, it's been a lifelong journey. So I think it started actually, just those tools of learning I needed a confident winning mindset in order to compete in log rolling. I like to talk about the fact that when I was there working, competing for the world title of log rolling champion, that I was facing my nemesis and who had beat me the year before. And the reason she beat me the year before was that she had a stronger winning mindset than I did, where I became nervous when I competed and I had self-doubt. So I knew I had to change that. So that's when I bought my first psychology book and started my journey then. And then I basically, went on to do all the research and having the international HR degree and being able to, I was very much into training and organizational development. So I taught classes around the world with my company. I was working for Cargill International, and I worked for other companies, and computer network technology was the last company I worked for. They've been bought and sold a few times, so I'm not sure what their name is anymore. But so I was always in the business as far as personal development, in a sense. And when I left the business, it was like, I just am a self-learner. I'm a seeker. I love learning. And so I just kept taking classes. I mean, I really wish that I would have maybe created my own PhD program, because I surely have spent enough research and time and gathering and studying to have multiple, I think, PhD titles behind my name. But it's kind of like the love and the passion and the personal growth and helping others and seeing that reward. And so all those things really built the business to the point where in 2017, I said, okay, I have to start teaching this more formally in the business. And that's when I started teaching my first Create Your Amazing Life workshops, and really based on getting people to really get clear on their goals and getting their energy up and really understanding how to work with energy. I think with your background too in neuroscience and quantum physics, we understand that we all are made up of energy, and
Yep.
you don't want to set goals when in a depressed state. You want to set goals when you're feeling good and strong and positive. So how do you shift there? How do you get really clear on those goals? How do you kind of call in the law of attraction? How do you manifest? And then I think most importantly, what I have kind of dealt with is how do you stay motivated? So you've got your goals, you know where you want to go, But, how do you get up every morning and stay going when maybe your mother is terminally ill, or maybe going through a divorce, or a child is sick, or you just have some angry customers. I mean, how do you pick yourself up every day and be your best self? And that's kind of the cycle that I'm focusing on now, kind of the goal setting and whatnot. There's so many people out there. I think they're doing a beautiful job. I can do it. But I feel like where I really help people is that daily motivation, how to stay focused, how to stay feeling good, how to like change a bad day into a good day.
Yeah. And it reminds me of this book from Simon Sinek that he says, it all starts with the why. If your why is big enough, the rest will follow. And that's, I remember when I was doing 2.5 year training, and part of the training was a daily mind training. And my mentor said you had to have a purpose, right? And my purpose back then was um, to become the world's best hypnotherapist, right? And it's a very big, audacious goal, right? And will I ever be able to achieve that? I don't know. You don't hear me say no, right? Will I be able to prove it? Probably not. Because when I start yelling that I'm the best hypnotherapist of the world, somebody will stand up and say, you're just starting, right? I'm already like 20, 40 years in the business. Come back when you got some experience or something like that, right? But that's not the point.
Right.
Having this goal makes me keeps me motivated. It keeps me learning from others that are further down the road than I am. I'm learning from my clients. It's not achieving the goal, it's the journey I'm on that I'm enjoying, and that's what keeps me motivated.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you make a really good point there. And I was actually speaking with a friend the other day along these lines. And I said, even the best coaches have coaches, there's always something to learn from somebody else. But then it's also good for you to share what you've learned with others too. So don't fall in the trap that I'm so good I can't learn from others, but also don't fall in the trap that I need to learn even more before I can teach others.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's I think it's also an American expression as well, but what we say in the Netherlands, in the land of the blind, one eye is king, right?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
And as a one eye, you need a two-eyed king to help you to proceed and progress.
That's good. That's good. That's good. I'm half Finnish, so I'm kind of a little bit in your area. My ancestors were, so that's
Ah,
they never shared that one with me though. So I love that one. I'm going to keep that in my back
yeah.
pocket.
Well, it's also I think it was a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio where he says something. Was it Catch Me If You Can? Where he's
I,
pretending to be a lot of other people, and
yes.
at a certain moment he was acting like he was the professor at the university, and they asked him how were you able to keep this up, right? Because you're just a student like the rest of them. And I think his answer was something, I just needed to be one lesson ahead of the rest.
Mm, that's great.
And that's
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 great.
just what you said, we are coaches, but we're also students, right? We're eternal students. We learn from other coaches, we learn from our mentors, we learn from our clients as well. And everything we learn, we um gather and use to help our clients even better.
Yeah, yeah. And it's fun and exciting to learn something new. I mean, I love it when somebody teaches me something new,
Oh, definitely.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So do you
one
still,
eye.
yeah, do you still remember the first client you helped and how you impacted his or her life?
Gosh, yes, I would say so. I mean, definitely, I think a woman that was struggling with, moving through her career, going through a divorce, and trying to step into a more powerful position when she had a lot of stuff going on in her own personal life, that would create more self-doubt and stress. So I do remember, doing some coaching and, what can she control? What can she do to help her physical stress? What kind of tools can she use? Stay focused. And also really to focusing on her strengths and not just, I think we can run through the day and kind of feel our energy zap, 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 zap. And I think sometimes we need to stop and reflect on what are the strengths that got me here and for her, or were the strengths that she had that gotten her to where she was in her life and her, and success in her job. And those strengths were there, and those strengths were going to carry her through to the next, to the next phase. So really having a chance to focus and to praise herself. I think we just don't use enough self-praise in our culture, in our lives, in our world altogether. Maybe some societies do. I don't know, but I will be in a room full of 200 people and I'll say, how many people praise themselves this morning? And maybe 5 to 10 people have raised their hands, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really important because as adults, we don't get people like giving us a pat in the back or a high five like we did when we were kids, so you have to really learn to encourage yourself and to not feel strange about it. Just think about it as this is the most important self-care tool I can use is self-praise. So that really digging into that really did help her get through that really tough time. And she went on to be a very successful executive.
Nice. Nice. And I guess that experience like that only motivates you to add some more value, right? To help even more people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I went on to teach my workshop and I have different versions of it. I mean, I've even done like 45 minutes of just teaching, kind of energy tools to kind of get your energy up and moving, when you're going through tough times. And so it's been very impactful. And then when COVID hit, I decided to just spend a couple years giving back. And so I just did a lot of things free on social media where I would teach a tool a day. A lot of it was on Facebook at that time. Now, you'll find more on YouTube and a YouTube channel. But it's fun because I will get stopped in the streets, or if people, recognize my name, they'll thank me for helping them. So sometimes you don't even know how you're helping people. Someone's watched something or heard you or following you. And, I always feel really blessed and grateful when those moments happen, and they do happen, which is really wonderful.
Nice. And about giving back, you also done a lot for charity, right?
Yes, I decided last year that authors don't make a lot of money in their books. I don't know if you know that, but we do it for the love of writing, and we hope obviously to sell millions of copies and to have the jackpot. But there's also so much need in the communities. So I decided last year when I was running different campaigns that I just wanted to give back. So I've probably given back over 80% of my profits to different charities. I did a fundraiser for UNICEF when Ukraine was really exploding. And I hate to even use that term, excuse my term using that. But after some of the terrible events that happened there, I was so concerned about the children and whatnot. So we ran a UNICEF campaign and using the Kindle version of the book and donated 100% of the proceeds. So I even covered all the cost and donated that. But yeah, I've done it for humane societies, for children's, women's shelters, for libraries. In fact, July 18th, I'm donating, all my profits of book sales to a library expansion up in a small town here, Wisconsin, called Cable, Wisconsin, to help them expand their small little library to, because libraries are beautiful places for communities to come, and they serve all economic levels. So if you don't, if you're struggling financially and whatnot, I mean, a library is one of the most wonderful places you can go. They do more than just books. They have a lot of programs and supports and resources. And I think
Nice.
that exists around the world. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's beautiful to be able to give back something, right?
It is. It is. It's great. Sometimes we think 100, 150 here, 200 there, does it make a difference? But it does. It's that ripple effect. This winter, I had already given a lot away, and I thought, oh, I better like maybe hold back and start to cover some of my costs a little bit more. And then a budget cut happened to my hometown library. So I enlisted the aid of a local shop owner, and we kind of did a business challenge for the other businesses. Hey, we're going to donate the sales and the cost. You cover the cost of 10 books. So that's $160, right? But it was more the ripple effect that other businesses said, well, what little piece can I do, too? So, you add up all those little donations, and suddenly you're making an effect.
Nice. It's indeed what you say. If you set the example, others will follow as well. So you never know what impact you can have with your actions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice. So, talking about neuroscience and stuff like that, would you agree that we are our own worst customers?
Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, I remember I've done a lot of hypnotherapy trainings, right? And during the training, you do the exercises on each other. And every time when somebody wanted to do a hypnotherapy, practice a script or something like that on myself, I wanted to experience it, but also I wanted to keep track where they were in the script. So, okay, now they're here, and then then the next thing will be that. So I was always, I'm not saying obstructing the process, but I always want, maybe it was about keeping control of keeping track of what they were doing, but it wasn't helping the process, so to speak. Right. And we are great in helping other people. Yet we don't see our own blind spots. And that's, we need others for that.
Yes. I mean, I work with a coach, and I'm constantly learning. And this is interesting that you brought this up, because, I try to be very self-aware. And so the other day, it's like, some of the good questions that I've learned to ask, and I've been, coached on this as well, is what are my stopping blocks? What stops my progress? And so what are my stopping factors, and how can I overcome those? Or what is the secret self-sabotage things that I do? So one of the big ones I think people use, and I'd be interested in your experience as well, is people will say, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overwhelmed. And that's something I have used many times. And it's like, okay, that's a stopping strategy for me. I'm so overwhelmed, I can't focus. So, I'll go do something else, versus maybe tackling that hard piece of the project of the day, or whatever I need to do, maybe to really make a difference in my business.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, I realize I'm using that as a stopping strategy, as a self-sabotage. So, and the best way of overwhelm is to just like take a step back and say, well, what are the most 2 or 3 important priorities? Just what do I really, 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 really need to do? And just ignore the rest, for that day, for that moment, and dive in. So I'm curious, what have you experienced as some of the self-sabotage that people do and maybe aren't aware of?
Well, one of the things that I actually started thinking about was what one of my business coaches once said, is people who use excuses like no time or no money, right? But those aren't actually excuse. Of course, there are excuses, right? But real issue behind it is there's no priority. Right. So they don't give it priority, right? And he said that he gave me this example. Let's say that you would that your belly hurts, right? And you go to the hospital, and they do an exam, and the nurse comes back to you, and she said, "I'm sorry, but I have bad news and good news, right? The bad news is the condition you have, it's very rare and it's fatal. If it's not treated within a month, you probably die from it, right? Now the good news is there is a special treatment. It's in Japan, and they have a success rate of about 99.5% that you will survive. But you have to undergo this process within 3 weeks time, and it's not covered by any insurance, so you have to pay $100,000 for it, right? So
Right.
and then he asks, what would you do? Would you say, I don't have time for it, maybe next month, or I don't have the money for it? Or would you move and shake heaven and earth to be able to have this treatment within 3 weeks and have the money to pay for it?
That's very powerful example.
Yeah, so it's he said there's no such thing as no time or no money. It's all coming down to no priority.
Right. hmm
And I thought that was an aha moment, right? We, of
Right.
course, our subconscious wants to keep us safe and protect us and take care of us. And the easiest way of doing that is to keep yourself in your comfort zone, because everything within your comfort zone, it's it's more or less predictable, right? The outcome is known. And the moment you have to get out of your comfort zone, you will get some obstruction, like some sabotaging mechanisms from your subconscious mind, because it doesn't know what the outcome will be. And
Right.
that's when people come up with those excuses until you have a big enough why to get out of it, and you will come up with the solution yourself.
Right. 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 And I think to build on that a little bit is when you step outside your comfort zone, I think the more that you practice doing that, the easier it gets. You know, and I see so many people living smaller lives than they really would like to because they just are afraid to get out of their comfort zone, or when they do, it doesn't feel good, like you said, because the subconscious wants to protect us and bring us back. And I think that's where some of the tools that I so enjoy teaching, whether maybe it's tapping, using some tapping, acupressure, mantras, visualization, different statements, maybe different energy moves, can help you deal with that sense of discomfort that you're going to have, because it does kick in. I mean,
Yeah,
absolutely, that subconscious, it can be our best friend and it can be our worst enemy, right?
exactly. And
Because
then,
it can.
and it's also what people underestimate, in my opinion, is the effect of your direct environment. Because if I would transform or change myself, right, then in from the viewpoint of my spouse, I'll become another person, and she's used to the old me, right?
Right.
So I might get some how do you say it, some force from my spouse that will try to get me back to my old self,
Yes.
because
Yes.
I'm getting out of her comfort zone as well, because she has to get used to a new me, so to speak.
Right. Right. Right.
So I think people underestimate that as well. What my coach said: if you want um, to elevate yourself, surround yourself with people that will elevate you as well.
Right. We all, well, many of us have heard that, surround yourself with, the people, positive people, people you want to be, people that are maybe more successful than you are, or whatever. So you can kind of keep moving. Um, but then I think what you talk about is very real. It happens to a lot of people, whether it's a spouse or a family member, is that, they kind of resist that change. So they're adding that another level of resistance to you moving forward. I remember a good friend of mine said that he was not able to go home for family visits for almost a year after he started his own startup business, because they all wanted him to be safe and just to go back to, working for somebody else, and thankfully, but that's what he had to do to protect himself,
Yeah.
was to, and he very rarely made calls home during that first 12 years, and that first 12 months.
Yeah.
And then slowly, he kind of, but I think too, I've heard so many men and women, especially women, talk about when they want to start their own business, that they feel their partners holding them back. And I think that's where that communication is, just to recognize, like you said, if you're self-aware, like,
Yeah.
okay, this is going on. And then what are some of the things I can do about it, right? Be prepared, right? Be prepared. You're going to feel some of that,
Exactly. Right. And
yeah,
they don't mean harm with it, right? They don't do it on
right.
purpose, but it's also their subconscious that wants to hold you back, because that
Yeah,
makes them feel comfortable and is within their comfort zone as well.
yeah, yeah. And I would always advise, take care of yourself first, do that. Even humming, if you're having a bad day, you can't get your mind to stop going. You can hum for a little bit, or you can listen to some good music, or just like step into like maybe some conscious breathing, even, in and out for 4 counts each. But and then once you've prepared yourself, talk to your spouse about your partner or friend about, hey, listen, I know this is kind of new for both of us, and you know, um, I just really love your support in my following my dream, and how can I help you feel more comfortable,
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
really good points.
I'm afraid, Kristine, we could talk hours on all those subjects, those wonderful subjects. Time flies when we're having fun, right?
It
Um,
does, it does.
if you could share one little tip or piece of wisdom with the audience about following your passion or entrepreneurship or whatever that comes to mind, what would it be?
I would say be prepared to never to don't so you're not so you don't give up. I mean, if you think about, if you're going to take a big, trip, maybe especially like say you're going to go camping or any type of trip, you're going to bring your right supplies. If you're going on a trip, you're going to pack your suitcase. You're going to make sure you have your medicine. You're going to make sure you have the right clothes, all that kind of stuff, right? So as you start this trip of an entrepreneur, I'd say, think of the same thing. What tools do you need? And not just think about the finance, the people, the staff. Think about what emotional tools that you're going to need to be successful. And then to have a list ready. I mean, I have a list of like 50, over 50 here, that every now and then when I get stuck, I'll I'll look at them like, oh God, I forgot about that one. That's really a good one, um, because you're gonna have to encourage yourself. I mean, hopefully you'll be surrounded by people that encourage you, but they're not there 24/7. You're with yourself 24/7, right? So you
Exactly.
need to be prepared with your own first aid kit.
Yeah, wonderful advice, Kristine. So, and if people want to know more about you, get in touch with you, or maybe even order your book, how can they do that?
Well, I would love for you to order my book, because I'd love to share the journey with you, and we can talk about it, reach out. Best way, really, my website's just my first and last name. My last name is Ochu, Oshu, and it's Kristine with a K. So it's KristineOchu.com. My email is also a super easy way, Kristine@KristineOchu.com. And then I'm all over social media for the most part. I haven't gotten to TikTok much, but I'll get there. And I just kept very consistent. Kristine Ochu. You can send me a message. You can email me. And my website has all kinds of information. And if you sign up for my newsletter, you also get, I will email you my top 10 unstoppable tips that you can use to help ditch the stress and anxiety and embrace calm and confidence.
Oh, wonderful, Kristine. Um, I want to thank you for being my guest. We definitely stay in touch, and thanks for sharing all your wisdom, Kristine.
Thank you, Erwin. You've got an amazing journey. I love your podcast. You're awesome.